how to find story ideas for the intranet. Let's look at the program for today. We are going to look at little tiny tidbits from our typical workshop one, Find It. What does that mean? That is finding your thought leadership niche. Finding your thought leadership niche. Part 2 that we're going to cover today, just little tidbits, is framing your stories, right? And actually, I don't want to fast forward just to framing your stories, which is what the title of this session indicates, because actually you need to have thought about your thought leadership niche first and that of your firm. So that will be the second thing we look at. And typically our workshops also go into the writing of articles for your key audiences. So finding, framing, and fleshing out your ideas. Let's begin with a question. What is a thought leader? What is a thought leader? I'd like to hear it from you in the chat. Heard something from Matthias and Olaf, Karen, Dennis so far. What is a thought leader? As you're typing, I'll go ahead and keep us moving along. You may have some different ideas or they may overlap. Thought leaders are subject matter experts, and you've probably got quite a lot of those in your organization. But they're subject matter experts who also want to get their ideas out there and share. They're willing to teach because they just love their field so much. They publish widely, and they are known for what they know, right? So if you had to ask me, like, excuse me, what is the spot on definition of thought leadership? I might say it's being known for what you know. Someone, and Matthias is saying, somebody who is a specialist in a certain area of industry, ideally the reference, right? They're the go-to expert. They're the one whose next article or book, the audience can't wait to get their hands on. Okay, that's setting the agenda. How do they do it? They are very conceptual thinkers. They're working with story. They're explaining visually. They're simplifying, but not oversimplifying. And they're providing guidance. So in the jungle of so much information, the thought leader is the one who helps calm nerves because they can help you identify what's really important. And for your internal comms, having a thought leadership approach, why would you say that that is important? Well, it's not only good for you in your career, but it's for the organization. It allows you to have consistent messaging and have a practice and a culture where you're sharing ideas. And when you are working in a thought leadership context, it's very engaging for the experts because they are finally getting recognized for what they know, right? Because very often the knowledge centers in the organization, the person may have a small group of people who recognize their expertise, but maybe not a large group. So the people who are involved in your thought leadership internally, they are getting to become visible experts. I might over exaggerate. They weren't invisible before, but they were definitely more invisible, and they're becoming more visible. So let's take a look at the 3 steps to thought leadership writing. And I see some comments, Philip. You let me know if you want me to stop and address any. The 3 steps to thought leadership writing, as you may recall from the agenda overview, these match to the stages of or the 3 steps to thought leadership writing. These match to the workshop's stages today. So finding your thought leadership niche, framing your stories, and fleshing it out. That's what you actually have to do. So it's not just an agenda, it is a process. That's what you need to do. We're going to drill down on framing it, how to find those stories for your intranet. let's look at 5 types of thought leadership writing that might come through your organization, written by you as the comms expert, written by you with the help of the experts in your organization, or written by your agencies or ghostwriters or people helping you, or the experts themselves. So one form is short form first person articles where people are sharing what they know, why they believe something, and externalizing their knowledge. A second is magazine length reported stories. So this is where outside data is brought in or interviews are brought in. In-depth interviews, that is the Q&A style, can be very useful type of article for internal comms. Studies, this is where you're using research that you gathered externally or internally and developing some reports. Books also make up thought leadership writing. Obviously, your experts are not going to have time to be writing a book on the job, but it's important to keep these types of writing in mind. And also, it's important to understand that just one of these types is not going to make you a thought leader. So if you have your experts constantly writing first-person articles, that's great, but one article by one expert is not going to make him or her a thought leader. It's got to be a body of work. But as a firm, if you have all these content engines revved up and working, and you're clear on the messaging, and it's valuable ideas and unique ideas that are being shared, as a firm, that body of work definitely sharpens your thought leadership profile. These are thought leadership stories, types of stories. And this is interesting for you because these are potential types of stories that you can write for the intranet. And it might be about an internal change program, or it might be about how someone in the organization changed their view about something, or were impacted by a program or a change in the organization. These are definitely applicable to internal comms. Philip, let's go ahead with the first poll so I can get to know the audience a little better. What are you writing about for internal audiences right now?
Okay, the poll is now live.
And as people are filling that out, Matthias has asked who should be the sender and at what level? Senior expert, CEO, CTO. That just depends on what you're communicating, what the goal is, the channel selected, and so forth. I think for kind of everyday intranet type of things, it's not going to be your CEO. That is reserved for special communications. Thank you for the question, Matthias. Philip, you will read out the results of the poll?
I think I can show it to you. Yes, you have it on the right side. So there are 8 votes for company news and events, 2 votes for our business and our thought leadership in it, and 3 votes for articles for knowledge capture.
Okay. So company news and events for sure. And that is good to know. That is what the intranet is designed for. And we're going to talk about that briefly. How do you make those articles more interesting? How do you frame those up and find those stories that need to be published frequently and keep the reader engaged. Okay, thank you for participating in the poll. And I was glad to hear that a few people are also writing about thought leadership in the organization. Okay. Looking at thought leaders in internal or external comms, what do all of these people have in common? I would say that a thought leader is teaching about the things they know best, and they love to share their knowledge and make it useful and applicable. So it's a sort of public teacher, and what they gain and what you as an organization gain and what you as a person in internal comms gain is you gain the trust of the reader, and that benefits you in many, many different ways. And when I say teacher, I'm not talking about, at school or whatever. I'm talking about that. I say teaching to contrast to the typical type of content that you see out there in marketing today, which is really, talking about your unique value, your benefits, what makes you so great, your offering, etc. That type of content is not thought leadership, and that's not going to build trust. That's just going to actually annoy people and make them turn away. So, but when you're generously sharing your knowledge internally or externally, you can win trust, and that is very valuable. So if you want to come off as a thought leader in your writing, how do you do that? I say you have to use a journalistic approach to story finding, right? You have to figure out and understand how to keep the conversation going, how to move it forward. If the piece does not move the conversation forward, then it's static. It's going to sit there and provide less value. So once you've framed your article like a journalist, then you've got to deliver like a journalist and make the writing interesting. Keep the paragraph short, make it fast moving. Those are some examples. So looking at the 3 steps to thought leadership writing, we're going to just very quickly look at how to find your thought leadership niche. And my point here for you as an internal comms professional is that you are engaging with the subject matter experts in your organization for the purpose of content creation and for other purposes. And there will be moments, and probably some of you are already doing this, where you can take a coaching role, and there's an expert who is an emerging thought leader or could imagine that. So how would you coach this person and help them find their thought leadership niche? My thinking is that the best way to be able to help someone find their own thought leadership niche is for you to do it yourself. So I want to just walk you through this real quick, what that looks like. So here I'm talking about you as a comms professional, because yes, there are thought leaders in internal comms and in all areas. And it's, the niche of expertise really doesn't matter. There are even thought leaders on how to organize your closet. People who've built an empire on this thinking. So the niche does not matter. So let's look at these components of a thought leadership niche. So this is your experience, your credentials, but you don't have to have a PhD in this. This is something that you've done a lot of and been thinking of it a lot. And you've got your passion is wrapped up in that. Okay. So if we had more time, I would actually be sending you all in breakouts and asking you to map this out for yourself about your own knowledge. Then you have to have a unique viewpoint on your subject matter, right? If you're coming at it just like what everybody else says, well, that is not particularly interesting. Where those three areas come together, that is your thought leadership niche, and that is your story sweet spot. So if you were to publish about something that you're passionate about, maybe it is KPIs and internal comms, or maybe it's a particular tiny slice of what you do that you've found a better way to do it and you just love it and it gets you all excited, okay? So if all of these things come together, that's your thought leadership niche, and that's where you publish from. And when you're engaging your experts in the organization, you want to be able to help them find their thought leadership niche. So that's why I say it's good to start with your own thought leadership niche. Now, this, I'm going to just share with you the template, and we're not going to go use it, but you will have a chance to review the video. So when you do, you can grab a screenshot of this and use this template if you'd like. So how would you, the thing for internal comms is obviously you have to apply the messaging, and you have to be very clear on your organization's thought leadership niche. Now, it's possible that your organization has not articulated that, or they have articulated it, but it's not being called thought leadership, et cetera, et cetera. So I want to make you aware here of the things that that go inside a thought leadership statement, so that you can work on that on your own time. And being clear on this will make you a clearer communicator in all of the stories and articles and things that you communicate on the intranet. And the first component of the template is just really knowing what you want to be seen as the authority in. What is that? Okay. And then how does that link to the why of the organization, and then also the business goals of the organization. So this is something to take away for later. If you have clarity on this, that will be much easier for your communications in the long term. And obviously, one person is not going to be able to decide this for the entire organization, but putting your ideas together is always a good thing, or something you can talk to your team about, get some input. Okay, this is an example. I'm actually going to skip over this in the interest of time. I want to get to the story framing part. So let's do the second poll, please, Philip. Who is clear on your organization's thought leadership niche? Or would you say that there's more work to do?
Okay, it's live now. It's probably time to show the results. We have it on the right side. So half of the people, surprisingly, are unsure about that.
Okay.
More than that, okay. Yes, 3 votes, no 2 votes. Okay, that's interesting.
All right. Yeah, I think then for those who are not clear, that's an opportunity, right, to get input and feedback from colleagues, seniors, and so forth. And yeah, Kai Friedrich's questions, can the question be answered with yes, no? It's a moment in time. The clarity may hold for now, but the business is changing fast, right? So the messaging and the niche needs to be constantly updated. Yeah, it's better as an open-ended question. I agree. Let's get back to the slides then. Finding your story ideas for the intranet. Okay, what are some story angles, some starting points for story angles. Where do you even start, right? Well, how about your opinion on things, right? Strong opinion, get tuned in. That means a possible story idea, the things you know, the processes that you know and are familiar with. Let's say you engage in a conversation or attend an event in the organization, and you've got some criticisms of some of the things that were said. You identify that there are myths or best practices or ethics in your niche. Those are all starting points for story angles. And it's basically a funnel for your thinking. And if you were in brainstorming mode, you could take a list and just write bullets. You know, what are some of the best practices, I think, or what are some of the processes that are important that are not known enough and need to be shared? So these are some of the starting points. Now we're going to look at headline types for articles. And this is, I'm going to go through this pretty quickly. These are all from stories that I wrote years ago as a journalist. And it's instructive because there's a template behind this. Okay. Now these are kind of cheesy story headlines, and the articles I wrote, but in many cases I didn't write the headline. That was the editor doing it. But the point here is that there's a methodology or a template behind one. Sometimes it's numbers, so it's 3 ways, five reasons why, etc. You're highlighting a how-to, an action, and a benefit. Okay, that can construct a headline. A third template is highlighting mistakes, 3 big sins of public speaking. A fourth one is using clever language. This article was about business schools on ships. So how, you know, so you have the nautical flair here. Business schools set course for charted waters, right? That's a headline template that you can use. A question, is your colleague pure evil? And again, I didn't write that, the editor did. Or a bold statement, take your power back from a control freak. So these are some headline templates. And as we move on, I'm actually like to hear from you in the chat. How do you store your story ideas? Do you have them in a notebook? Are you writing them in a Word document? Are you putting in your content management system? How do you store your story ideas for internal comms? I'd like to get some feedback on that as we continue. Okay, so what is this good for? Why do you need to be interested in these types of headlines? Well, they are basically an enabling constraint. So what does that mean? You know, a story can't be everything to everybody. It's got to be constrained, right? But you do have to be enabled to get it written. So I really just like this phrase. It was coined by a guy named Sean Coyne, spelled differently. And I like it because it enables the writer to get the article done, and it does that by constraining. Okay, so I'm seeing a shared Outlook calendar, MS Loop, Excel file. Okay. Good to know. So here is the story framing system. And how does that work? It's basically like a big funnel with all this context going in, including what is your thought leadership niche for your organization, right? It's going in at the top. What comes through is you're filtering for the business landscape, your niche, your subject matter niche, and problems in the niche. Okay, so in the live story framing demonstrations I do, we actually work on one problem faced by one audience that your organization solves. Okay, and we map that out. And once you have clarity on the problem, not the solution, but the problem, once you have gone deep on the problem, that's when you can apply the headline templates, and bam, you get some nice story ideas. So I will share with you what this looks like in more detail, excuse me. This is here where my mouse is moving. This is what I was just saying. You know, this is what your mind map would look like if we had the chance to go through this exercise, okay? You're breaking down the problem. And here is a higher level mind map as an example, okay? So this is from my area of expertise, which is thought leadership writing. So here I'm just generally saying problems in thought leadership writing. So you would say problems in the niche of your company. And then you just you list them out at a high level, okay? In this case, maybe poor story angles, poorly structured articles that don't really say much, no meat on the bone, there's no personality in the writing, or maybe there's just no understanding of what thought leadership writing is. So this is a higher level. What are the problems? Okay. That's how we're applying the story framing system now. Okay. Starting with the problems. Now on this example slide, I'm drilling down on one of those. I'll just go back and show you which one here where my mouse is moving. Poor story angles. I like that problem. Okay, so that's how you apply the story framing system. You find a problem you like a lot and you have ideas about it because it's been intriguing you. Okay, so this now is at the center of my mind map. Okay, I have a problem statement. It happens to be subject matter experts use poor story angles or the wrong ones and fail to hold the attention of their readers. Okay, so that is my problem statement. And all of this around here is where I've just taken it to town and unpacked that problem. Okay, I've just unpacked that problem. And in this detail is where you find beautiful story ideas. And that's how you get the constant stream of story ideas, because that's what you need to do is publish constantly, right? To keep up the engagement and serve the audience. So it's in this detail where you find it. So some of the headlines. So once I've got that mind map that you just saw, I apply those headline templates. The ones we saw, the 3 best practices for whatever. And those are my solutions to the problems. And here's some example headlines that I could create, or I did create from that exercise. 3 ways to improve any story you write about the business. The right way, bringing your personality to the page. You're not a dud. Don't make your writing one either. How nut graphs can help keep your story on track. Or the bold statement. With this story framing process, you'll never write another boring story again, right? Okay, so that is literally the turbo version of how the story framing system works. You've gotten your thought leadership niche together, articulated it. Now it's time to frame your stories. You looked at the problems of the audience. You unpacked that and you applied headlines as solutions. That's the very high level of how it works, okay? And you can apply that every day for stories on the intranet. So what are some of your story ideas? That's 2 questions in one, a poll and a question. Let's just go straight for the poll, skip the story idea questions. Who is taking a problem-based approach to finding story ideas for the intranet?
The poll is live again.
When I see the confetti, Philip, does that mean people are responding, or is that just for fun?
They're at least pointing on the screen, so I guess yes.
Okay. Thank you, Olaf.
Okay, 50-50.
Okay. All right.
That's interesting again.
So congratulations to those who are using a problem-based approach already. And I think for those who have not yet tried it, I would say give it a try and see if the ideas streaming more fluidly. Excuse me. Let's keep going. We have only a few more minutes left. Actually, that's all the slides. Let's talk about Q&A. Here's how you can contact me. My LinkedIn is in the chat. My book is available on online booksellers and so on. So I'll actually stop sharing. Stop sharing audio and video. That's not the one I want. I want over here. Stop sharing. Woo, I think I would have actually bounced out there.
Good. So if there are more questions, feel free to use the chat.
I'll actually look back a little bit in the chat and see.
We had one interesting comment, Karin's comment. She said, as you say, they set the agenda, but need a team that follows them on every level. Bossy behavior is not what a true leader should show. A leader should be a team player. And I think that's very true.
Thank you, Karin. Yes. A leader and a thought leader definitely need to be a team player, and you've got to engage your audience and serve your audience. You're a servant. And so, if you're bossing people around, that's going to be counterproductive for your leadership and your thought leadership. Olaf says, my challenge is to convince our internal thought leaders to actually act as a thought leader next to the regular business. Yeah. So part of that, truly, Olaf, is they are pressed for time. Maybe they're interested, but it would have to be something that they do on the side. So there are ways that you can make it easier for them through enabling them so that they too have the constant stream of story ideas and are able to publish more. And there are ways to encourage that. And yeah, the leadership does need to make a decision to carve out some time for doing that. I spoke to one company recently that is paying the experts money for each article that they produce. And I thought that was quite interesting. It more or less sounds like that didn't work for them. So even paying the experts to write is not really getting to the root of the problem, which is they have lots of ideas to share, but they're not writers. They're experts in a different field. So you need some sort of enablement and a longer term program where they can get support that they need quickly and easily and gain a habit of ideation, sustained ideation, and where it's a regular thing and not, a big worry, oh my gosh, how am I going to get my article done this week? Yeah.
So you would say it's about the combination of being an expert and maybe the ability to tell stories, to be a storyteller, and yeah.
Yeah. And with AI, certain parts of that are getting easier, but you don't want your experts to also be just creating, random things with AI. So they need some enablement on that as well. And the focus should go on the ideas and the framing of the ideas. The framing has to be very, very fresh. So, from Matthias, we hear usually the goal is to position a company as a thought leader of your senior experts. Can a company be trustfully perceived as a thought leader or only the people behind? You need a person to build trust. Yeah. So you do need visible thought leaders in the organization, and it's but it does, I don't think it always has to be the senior experts. I think that there are lots of great ideas coming out of the people at lower levels in the organization. And if you find ways to help them harvest that and give a process for them to get that out there, that is potential fodder for your next piece of research, or it is the input that will lead to a new product or service. So I think the senior leadership usually gets a little too much attention, and those at lower levels could use a little bit more. That is my opinion.